Hello everyone and welcome back to JAS Reviews. My name is James and on this channel I do reviews of both music and movies along with the occasional commentary piece. If any of that sounds interesting to you, then I'd appreciate it if you left this video a like and subscribe to my channel to see future content like that. And ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of year once again, list season. I am so excited that we are at this time of the year. It feels like 2022 has flown by in many ways, to be honest. This year has gone by super fast. And yeah, now it's that time to talk about what this year had to offer, a sort of reflection. I love doing these types of videos every year, and I love going through both the good and bad of both music and movies, two of my favorite forms of media. And as with my lists in the past, I will start with music in the month of December, and we will be doing lists almost every week. There will be a couple weeks where I might take off, but pretty much every week there will be a list of some sort out in December, up until probably Christmas. And then in January, there will be the movie lists. So I am definitely very busy in these months. And you should also be expecting an update video of some sort coming out for me regarding the channel around January. As with every year that I've done these lists, I like to start on a more positive note. I know a lot of critics do generally start on what the worst of the year was, but I do like to start with the right foot forward before getting into the negative, which will be my next video. That is why today I am going to be counting down my top 10 best hit songs of 2022. I absolutely love making this list, and I'm very excited to talk about some of the best of what the Billboard Hot 100 had to offer this year. I do have to say that the Billboard this year was a little more intriguing to watch than last year, in my personal opinion. It was a year filled with a crazy amount of album bombs, including some particularly record-smashing ones by Taylor Swift and Drake. This year saw more than ever just how impactful streaming has become, even when it was de-emphasized in the Billboard's algorithm. And man, TikTok came through in probably the biggest way it has yet. We were starting to see the influence of that social media app for music in both 2020 and 2021 for the Billboard, but I think this year its influence came on in full force, and because of that we saw a lot of songs gaining even more virality because of that app. And sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for bad. Thankfully, we will be focusing on the good this time around. And like I've said before, out of all the lists that I make, this one is actually probably my favorite to make. It gives me a chance to talk about songs that I maybe wouldn't normally talk about, and as always, it is always exciting when there are songs that make my best hit songs of the year list that also end up making my best songs of the year list in general, and that is going to be the case once again this year, I am very happy to say. So, we're going to be talking about many great songs here, and let's get started. This is the top 10 best hit songs of 2020. Artists. Let's talk about an artist who got a lot of her success from TikTok, Beho, the very new artist to this year. I have talked about TikTok songs on my past two hit songs lists, if I remember correctly, but I do have to say that I think this one might rank my favorite out of all the ones that I have discussed. And, I mean, to be fair, there was probably some record label push going on with this song to make it as viral as it got on TikTok, but I think that the record label push only accounted for a part of it. I think it also helps that the song is actually legitimately great and has some really great qualities about it. I think that is what pushed it to have some genuine longevity on the Billboard, and I think there was a lot of natural groundswell there. I have said in the past that songs with the subject matter of sounds happy but has dark lyrics needs to do something interesting with that subject matter. The sound has been done many times, and I do think it is in danger of becoming a little bit cliched, but I actually think puts a pretty good spin on it here. The peppy pianos in the song are genuinely well done, along with the legitimately great electronic flourishes. The vocal layering done on the chorus is pretty great as well. There is also just a sort of homegrown indie feel that the song has, and I think that does come from M being a very new artist, and this being her first big song. There is something of a feeling that it wasn't necessarily meant to be for a big audience originally. I think M. Behold feels genuine in what she's saying. I think her vocal delivery is convincing and getting across the message that she's trying to express, and the lyrics here are clearly targeted at a Gen Z audience, which makes sense given that M is also within that age range. But that doesn't mean the lyrics are bad at all, and I think they do give the feeling of being numb about the world in a way that works. Lyrics like, do you ever feel a little bit tired of life? Like you're happy but you don't want to die? Like you're hanging by a thread but you've gotta survive, cause you gotta survive. Those lyrics are certainly pretty dark, but I think they speak well on the important subject matter, especially for those who are dealing with mental health issues. And I think it does help bring the message across even more, the fact that the musicality of the song is very light and upbeat to hide the dark subject matter. I think it reflects M's own mentality about her mental health issues, that she feels like she has to hide them and make herself appear happier than she actually is. There's lots of good quality here, and I am genuinely excited to see where this artist goes next.
I'd be feeling on fire on a hardwood stage, bright lights like lightning running through my veins.
It doesn't really seem like many country singers can compete in terms of star power with like the rap stars or the pop stars, just because of how the nature of music is and the nature of fans are right now. But I would say that there is one sort of rare exception to that, and that would be Luke Combs. I think he seems to have gotten some legitimate star power, gotten legitimately big in a way that could be compared to the biggest pop stars and rap stars of today. And what's even better about this is the fact that Luke Combs seems to still be a pretty humble guy in the midst of all of this, making him feel like one of the most relatable artists out there that is actually big. And what's more, I am not going to complain about him being big because I think he is a legitimately talented country star. His husky baritone voice is legitimately wonderful to listen to, and even with his popularity, it seems like the guy is one of the more down-to-earth celebrities, like I said, currently. Doing this is a clear example of this fact. I like the subject matter of this song a lot, framing it around an interview that Luke had where he was asked what he would be doing if he wasn't a famous singer. And Luke's answer here is pretty clear-cut. Even if he wasn't a famous singer, he'd still be a singer, whether it was playing out to a sold-out stadium or to just a small-town no-name bar. I like that he expresses that sentiment that singing is his passion, and I genuinely believe him when he says that. His voice really brings across that conviction, especially in the chorus, which just brings across this country rock tone that really just jumps off the page with his raucous vocals. And if one didn't believe before that singing was his passion, then this song, well, it should certainly do the trick. The simple line, "I'd still be doing this if I weren't doing this," has some surprising amount of weight in the subtle way that Luke Combs delivers it. It is an inherently simple idea, but I think it brings across a lot to the listener because Luke is singing it in such a way that feels so genuine and so full of passion, and you can just tell that he loves what he's doing, and it wouldn't matter if he was earning the money or not, which is why I think he is such a great choice for being a country star, because he has that modesty about him, and he is able to bring that about in a song like this. This is a bona fide great country song, and it's awesome to see that it did so well on the Billboard. To me, Luke Combs deserves all the praise that he gets.
Alright, it's about damn time. In a minute, I'ma need a sentimental man or woman to pump me up. Feeling fussy, walking in my Balenciagas.
This song by Lizzo received a surprising amount of criticism when it got released, and I'm not exactly sure if I understand why. I mean, sure, it is a little cliched when you look at it. It is riding very much so on the 80s pop nostalgia wave that we in America currently have, and it's riding it pretty hard, and it is a sort of typical pump-up song just to make you feel good. But personally, I just think that sometimes that is all a song needs. Not every song needs to be this complex thing, and I think people were being way too hard on Lizzo. I think the song is breezy and confident, and it's one of those tracks that is easy to turn on and have a fun time with. Lizzo, I will admit, can be a frustratingly inconsistent songwriter, as her album this year showed. Her album this year was overall just pretty underwhelming to me, with not a whole lot impressive done in it. But her and her other co-writers do a good job here at making this song a catchy, danceable pop track. I particularly like Lizzo's rap singing vocal delivery in the second verse. It's one of the most fun verses in a pop song I've heard this year, and Lizzo just sounds in command on this whole song, but particularly in that verse, I just really like what she's doing stylistically, and you can just tell with the way that she is singing that she is having a lot of fun with the song, and that she is just letting loose and having fun. And that is a totally fine thing to do. The flute solo done in the bridge is a great touch as well, showing how legitimately talented Lizzo is on that instrument. This is a fun tune, and that is just fine. Enjoy it for what it is, and I think you'll find that there is a great time to be had here. And sometimes, that is all a song needs.
Stupid boy making me so sad. Didn't think you could change this fast. She's got everything that I don't have.
I'll be honest here, I haven't really understood the hype behind Tate McRae. She has been called a Billie Eilish clone, which I can see the critiques for that, but that's not really my problem with her. My main problem is that she just isn't that interesting. Her breakup ballads feel pretty dime a dozen overall, especially the ones that got popular, and her album this year, I will say, just didn't do a whole lot to impress me. It didn't feel like it was any type of definitive statement. It just felt like a pop album that sort of got lost in the midst of other greater pop albums than it. None of her music has had any impact on me whatsoever. Not until this song, that is, She's All That I Want to Be. When I first heard this song, I will admit I was a little surprised because it had what so many of Tate's songs lack, a driving energy that brings the message of the song home. This song is certainly riding off of the recent pop-punk popularity that has sprung up this year, and I actually think that Tate owns the style. The guitars are very processed, but I think it sort of works for the message of the song. Tate is expressing her dismay about the fact that this boy that she likes, he likes another girl, and she wishes that she could be that girl because the girl has everything that Tate doesn't. Now, on the surface, you could just look at this song as simply one about jealousy. And there is certainly something to be said for that being the subject matter of the song. I wouldn't disagree with you if you said that was all the song was about. But I do think there is a little more hiding under the surface. I think the song could also be a commentary on the state of social media as well, and the idea that on social media, everyone shows their perfect life, and it can create a sort of insecurity in other people when they're looking at other people's feeds. Now, this song could have played it safe and been another breakup pop ballad. Even the lyrics sort of have that feel to where it could be a ballad if it really wanted to be, but I think that giving it a rock edge helps express some of the underlying resentment that Tate feels. Even in the midst of her very smooth and pretty vocals on this song, you can tell there's a little bit of underlying grit in there that she's certainly feeling that resentment that she doesn't have what this other girl has, and the insecurities that come out as a result of that resentment. I like that the song doesn't sugarcoat things and just sort of says what Tate feels. It also helps that the song is super catchy. Probably one of the most catchy songs of the year. Definitely check this cut out if you haven't.
I was hoping you would tell her it was over. You're all I think about it everywhere I look.
I really enjoyed Halsey's last album where she went with a more industrial rock flair, courtesy of Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which was a collaboration that I never really saw coming, but it was pretty great, and I think it was a good style for Halsey. So I was surprised when I first heard this song, and that it was going back to the more pop sound that Halsey has been known for. What's better is that this might be one of Halsey's best cuts in this genre. For as much as I did enjoy what they did on their last album, I think this works really well for them in terms of the pop landscape. The storytelling in this song is great, as it takes the trope of star-crossed lovers and does something pretty cool with it where it turns it on its head as a song that could be more hopeful. And this is interesting because Halsey has used the star-crossed lovers trope before in a more hopeless context on their sophomore album. This song seems to be at first someone just looking back on a relationship that they thought could have worked out if the timing was right. But the song does eventually get to the end where it reveals that the stars did eventually align for the two and that they are now together. The resolution to the song is very satisfying and once again clever because of how it takes that star-crossed lovers trope to a place that the listener isn't expecting. I think it is unique in that regard, and that is an aspect that I think of this song has gone underrated. The song's production is immaculate as well, and Halsey's vocal delivery is great. If this is the type of quality that we can expect out of their next album, then you can count me in as excited. I've not normally been the hugest fan of Halsey's pop ventures, but I think if this is the direction they're going, then it could be a very interesting one for them. So Good is a song that I feel like should have done better on the Billboard, given that it was definitely a more accessible song, and it was a pop song that worked very well, but nevertheless, it does deserve a lot of recognition because it is probably one of Halsey's best works.
You out of pocket. Who you think they talk about? Talk about us. You out of pocket. Who you think they carry out for us? Get back in pocket. The word in the panic, the women is stranded.
Wow, Kendrick Lamar came back in a pretty big way this year, didn't he? His album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, is a absolute behemoth to get through, with a lot of interesting layers that can be alternately intriguing and frustrating, and I think that is mainly on purpose. Overall, because of how the album was structured and the sounds of the songs, it wasn't destined to do well on the Billboard. I think that was to be expected. It's not Kendrick's most accessible rap album by any shot, but in '95 was a relatively successful song, so of course I'm going to give it its due credit here because it is an excellent song. The song's title, in '95, is a reference to the popular type of mask that has been worn during the COVID pandemic. The track is a banger, with Kendrick having a lot to say. The main idea of this song, I think, is Kendrick just wanting to cut through all the BS and just calling out people for being fake in one way or another. He calls out the concept of fake streaming or inflating your streaming numbers, and he calls out those who will do anything to get clout, as well as cancel culture. Now, if you've seen some of my album reviews this year, I have talked about cancel culture on several of them, because that seems to be a subject that a lot of artists have talked about, and generally I've said before that I think that when a song talks about cancel culture, it gives it a little bit too much emphasis, when I think that cancel culture isn't actually as big of a deal as some people make it out to be. But with Kendrick, it's a different case in my opinion. I think he actually makes that subject matter work in this cut, and he gives it an interesting spin and talks about it in a more nuanced way than some other artists have this year. And I think another part of the reason why the anger around all these subjects works is because you can feel that it is a result of Kendrick's own insecurities. This song has a lot of ego to it and is braggadocious, but I think it is clearly hiding some flaws and some insecurities that Kendrick feels, and he's trying to cover them up by being overtly braggadocious and just attacking everyone so that the blame can be deflected off of him. And Kendrick admits that later on this very album, so that's why this song works so well in the context of the album as well, and is a fairly clever cut to place in the beginning half of the album, which is far more just Kendrick covering up and being much more angry. This aspect of the song cleverly circles back to the track's title because his angry and braggadocious flair that he's putting on is clearly him wearing a mask of some kind. It just shows that Kendrick is a great lyricist. This is, once again, just a banger track. I mean, that is the best description I have for it, and it is one that I have returned to many times over this year, and I'm sure I will continue to return to for years to come.
Me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. At tea time, everybody agrees.
I'll admit, it's a little weird for me to look back on my history with Taylor Swift and how much my opinion has generally changed on her in pretty big ways. I used to be a pretty big detractor of hers and viewed her as an example of the worst of pop music, but I realize now that I wasn't being honest about my hate with her. I just did it because that's what a lot of other people did. And one thing that I did use to criticize Taylor about was the fact that she was never honestly critical about herself. And I think there are definitely some songs that you can point to where she shows some serious lack of self-awareness, especially in songs off of Reputation. But only pointing out those songs, I do think misses the bigger picture. In reality, Taylor has been honest about her flaws many times in her career, from a point where she was very young on her earlier albums. But I do think Antihero might be her best iteration of this subject matter yet. I like that Taylor frames her self-accountability through the idea that she is often her own worst enemy. She can oftentimes be the cause of the problems in her relationships. She's very wry and sarcastic about it, saying, "Hi, it's me, I'm the problem." And it almost sounds like she's a little embarrassed to say it. I really like that she brings across that little insecurity in her lyrics, and I like that Taylor takes a darkly comedic tone in the song as well, coming up with a sort of Knives Out inspired scenario where a passed away Taylor leaves no inheritance to her family just because she's being petty. I think that's a nice touch to the song and brings about a little twist into it that makes it a really fun cut of Taylor's, in my opinion. I think it's some of her most fun writing she's done on any track to date. Taylor has a lot of personality in her vocal delivery too, almost sounding like she's just having a conversation with the listener in certain parts. And it's songs like these where you can definitely understand why some fans really like her, because she is a really good storyteller on her best cuts. This song works really well along with just the immaculate synths incorporated and the chorus with some of Taylor's most fun vocals yet. I mean, this could well become one of my favorite Taylor songs in the future. As much as I do probably like cuts from Folklore and Evermore better, I think this is a really good example of Taylor doing pop well, and I don't mind it at all.
You and me, and if only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap.
Even this late into its runtime, it's amazing to see that Stranger Things still has some influence on popular culture. This year, that show, along with TikTok, managed to get a Kate Bush song all the way back from 1985 into immense popularity this year. I would have never guessed a song from this year would be on a list of mine in 2022. I'm sure a lot of people would have not been able to guess that a song that old would have made a Billboard in this year. But this cut definitely deserves its high placement in my opinion. I mean, how could I not include this song? It's masterful in what it does. Just a really great pop song with a lot of interesting progressive tendencies included in it. Kate is an absolute powerhouse of a vocalist here, having a tone that is both beautiful and eerie. The orchestration and the uncanny synths create a very interesting soundscape for the listener. The song lyrically is a bit repetitive, but I don't think the song ever gets boring despite how the lyrics don't really change up a whole lot. Kate's vocals are actually the thing that does change up, and at 5 minutes long, I don't think this song is ever boring. In fact, you could definitely call this progressive pop, as it is consistently changing what it is doing. I can personally understand why Max from Stranger Things used this song to protect her from Vecna. It's a quality cut that continues to show you fresh new things each time you listen to it.
Watch out.
Cause sometimes I look in the horizon, that's where I find my hopes alone.
And the award for most brutally heartbreaking song of the year goes to Glimpse of Us by Joji. Man, when Joji nails the vibe of a song, he creates what can only be called an absolute masterpiece. While I don't love this song quite as much as Run, it comes pretty close. This song keeps things simple musically. For the most of the song, we only have a piano and Joji's later vocals. This means the listener really gets to pay attention to the lyrics that are almost uncomfortably honest. Joji here talks about a relationship that is, by all appearances, relatively perfect. He and this girl seem to be in a very healthy place on the surface. But when the lyrics get to the reveal, you realize something that is just very painful. That Joji is only in this relationship to get a glimpse of the past lover that he had, to get a glimpse of the relationship that he really wants. I mean, man, it's painful to hear that. And even sadder in the song that there's never a moment of resolution. But I sort of like that there isn't a resolution either. I think it gives the song a sense of realism, and it really highlights the tragedy that is all too present here. The lingering sadness and longing just exist, and you have to stay in that headspace with Joji. And I think it's great that he does that for the listener and creates that atmosphere. And musically, the song just seems to put you into that headspace. The song feels meant to be listened to while closing your eyes, feeling the beauty, but also acknowledging that in some ways the beauty is hollow because it's not real, much like the relationship Joji's in. The relationship might look like it exists on the surface, but to Joji, the relationship is only a sort of reflection of the one that he really wants. It's incredible how well Joji is able to create that feeling through just the music itself. Not only is this one of the best hit songs of the year, but for me, for my money, this is one of my favorite songs of 2022 in general. This is, I mean, just an incredible cut, and it's unfortunate that the rest of the album couldn't match up to the quality of this one, but I am happy that we got this song this year at least, because it is an excellent cut. Before we go on to what is my personal favorite hit song of the year, I did want to highlight a couple of honorable mentions for this year. Now, I'm not going to be talking about these songs in any particular detail or anything like that, but I did want to give these songs their due recognition. So here we go. Here are some honorable mentions for hit songs of 2022 that just didn't quite make my list.
Oh, it's not the same as it was. Fall in love again until I found her.
You won't break my soul. You won't break my soul. Oh, player, I get it. Fraud, player, I get it.
I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes.
I wish I knew you wanted me.
And now we move on to my number one best hit song of the year. This was a really good year for hits in many ways. There was a lot of quality out there that I was very pleased to find. But there was one artist with a song that easily dominated this year, and he has dominated for me before. But who is that artist, and what is that song? Well, here it is.
I don't understand.
Yeah. For another year, The Weeknd has made it to my number one spot for best hit songs, and deservedly so. This song should have done a lot better than it did on the Billboard Hot 100, but man, it still made it onto the Billboard, so I am going to be giving this cut the credit it deserves. Sacrifice sees The Weeknd embracing full-on 80s funk with a guitar groove that is just irresistibly fun. I love that The Weeknd gets a little more loose and free in this track here, especially on his vocals, letting them vary up lyrically from his typically smooth R&B flow. The verses here are so much fun, and it's just impossible to not nod your head along to that guitar riff, which just stays so irresistibly catchy. And then the chorus takes you to an almost dreamlike trip, as the synths kick into full force and Abel's vocals get a little lower. The song matches up with the late night drive vibe that the whole of Dawn FM has. I like that The Weeknd actually takes a less toxic view on a relationship here. He's talking here about this relationship that he's in, once again, but here he offers up a little twist that he hasn't offered up on a song before. He says that this time he does not want to sacrifice who he is or become a fake version of himself just to please this girl or just to make this relationship easier for either of them. But you can still feel the tension in that he's still wanting to revert back to those old habits, sort of represented by the way the verses and the chorus change sounds. Every musical choice here was most certainly purposeful. It was also very cleverly done, I think. Abel is one of the masters of taking nostalgic pop trends and putting them in a new setting to make them feel like his own take, and not just a retread. I absolutely love this song. While it's not as good as Blinding Lights, but then again, not very many pop songs in general are, this song is still pretty great in its own right and has quickly risen up the ranks to being one of my favorite Weeknd songs. And of course, like with Glimpse of Us, this is going to be making my top 50 best songs of the year in general, and it's going to have a pretty high placement on that list. I'll be excited to talk about it once again there. This song is just great, so it obviously deserves a spot there, and it most certainly deserves my #1 placement for the best hit songs of 2022. So, there we have it, the top 10 best hit songs of 2022. What were your thoughts on any of the hit songs I talked about? Let me know in the comments down below. And also, if you feel so inclined, I would love to hear your list. I'm always loving to hear what other people thought about the year and what the best of it had to offer, as well as the worst. And speaking of the worst, the next video coming up will be my top 15 worst songs of 2022. But until then, my name is James, and on this channel I do reviews of both music and movies, along with the occasional commentary piece, so if any of that sounds interesting to you, then please be sure to give this video a like, and to subscribe to my channel for more videos like that. Stay tuned for more list season coming very soon. But until then, I will see you all in the next video.